Hi everyone, and welcome back to our YouTube channel. In today's video, we're going to be discussing some of the common risks and considerations that you need to keep in mind before buying your next pre-sale property. So without further ado, let's jump right in. So the first point that you need to keep in mind is GST, which is a 5% federal tax that gets applied to your pre-sale transaction. So it's important that you budget accordingly and you keep that in mind. The second point that you need to keep in mind is that there is no guarantee of profit. As we all know, real estate is a long-term game, but in the short term it could be cyclical. So it is possible that by the time the building is completed and the occupancy permit is issued, it could be worth less than what you had agreed to and what's stated in the contract, but you would still be required to close on the transaction. The third risk that you need to keep in mind is that there is no guarantee of a mortgage approval. So by the time the building is completed, it is possible that your financial situation could be completely different, and that could make it very difficult to obtain the necessary financing. It is important to note that there are strategies that you can utilize to completely eliminate this risk, but that is one thing to keep in mind. The fourth risk or point to consider is the fact that you're going to be purchasing off of floor plans. So you're not buying something that's tangible, that's already built, that you could feel and touch and measure. And speaking of measurements, that's often one of the things that get brought up in developers' contracts, and usually there's an allowable percentage. So there is no guarantee of what the finished or what the size of the finished product would be. So you need to keep that in mind. The fifth point or risk that you need to keep in mind is the fact that the completion date is only an estimation and it's not guaranteed. So often in developers' contracts, you'll see what they call an outside date, which is typically a date that's around 12 or 12 plus months out from the estimated completion date or the estimated completion range. But also sometimes there might be an extension of that outside date for another 6 to 12 months. So it is important to be privy to those dates. The sixth point that you need to keep in mind is the fact that your deposit installments that you've paid into the developer's lawyer's trust account that are being held for that time frame until the building is finished, you don't have access to, and you don't generate or you don't earn any interest on that money. So you need to keep that in mind. The seventh risk and the biggest risk would be if the developer is unable to complete the project. Let's say you've paid your deposit installments, let's say it's the end of 2023 and the estimated completion is the end of 2026, for instance. You could wait and pay those deposit installments and wait until the end of 2025 or beginning of 2026 only to learn that the developer is not able to go ahead with the project. So it is possible that that project could be canceled. And if something happens like this, you might be able to get your deposit back, but the biggest question is, what is your opportunity cost? If you held that money for 3 years, you could have invested it elsewhere. That money could have earned you interest, and you could have reinvested that interest at a higher rate or even at the same rate. So that is one thing that you need to be comfortable with. So that is the seventh and final risk that I wanted to highlight in today's video. The purpose of this video is not to scare you away from pre-sales. We've done a video about the benefits of buying pre-sales, which there's numerous benefits, but also it's important for an investor to have a balanced picture and be aware of some of the downside and some of the risks and how to mitigate them. All these risks that we've discussed, there are ways to mitigate them, and we can certainly talk about some of the solutions that you could implement in further detail. But if you have any specific questions about the points that we've discussed or about this video, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.